Well, this week marks the 53rd anniversary of the assassination of Robert Kennedy. The former US State Department appointee, Ed Blakely, was there. Ed, that day must be seared in your memory. What's the most vivid feeling you remember?
The most vivid feeling I remember is, I cannot believe this. I'm in a dream. I must have gone to the wrong place. I must have made the wrong turn because this can't happen to me this many times.
What do you mean this many times?
Well, JFK,
Yeah,
Malcolm X,
yeah,
these are people that I had met who brought me hope, brought me courage, and I wanted to be like them.
yes,
And
yeah.
here another one, I really thought he was injured, that he would get up at some point and come out of this. He
Yeah,
had to,
yeah.
or my life was gone.
Now, Bobby Kennedy had just won the California primary for the upcoming presidential election. Some have said he's the best president America never had. What difference would Bobby Kennedy have made?
He would have brought the purity back, the purity of his brother, the notion that America could be right for the world, and we were all part of making it right. The civil rights movement was barely started, but its legs were already there. And we all thought that America would enter the promised land.
That's this idea of Camelot, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And it hit me pretty hard because I was on the crest of this wave of people who would go to Washington and make a difference. And I really thought I'd already been chosen.
Ed, tell me what Bobby Kennedy was like.
He wasn't a very big man. He was small, he was slight, but he had a booming voice and an interesting set of mannerisms because he would use his hands to emphasize everything. You felt like he was a magnet, much like Martin Luther King was a magnet. But Martin Luther King was a big magnet, uh, kind of like a star. And this was a small, uh, and when he wasn't on stage, he was very shy. It took
Yeah.
getting him on stage to make him animate him.
So, Ed, did Bobby have high hopes for himself?
No, his hopes were all in us. His brother may have been person centered, but he was outward centered. I was working with the farm workers, and he came to them and acted like he was one of them. That was not his brother's style. His brother's style would have been to speak or preach at you, but he was a person who just grew on you.
Yeah. He served in his brother's administration. How important was he in that?
Well, he was critical to his brother's administration because he brought honesty back to American justice. For there was very few periods when the American justice system, right from the top, wasn't really out to protect white people and white people's rights. That was true in the Roosevelt administration, and Truman made some inroads, but not many.
I'm talking with former US State Department appointee Ed Blakely, who was there when Bobby Kennedy was shot. Ed, what was it that drove Bobby Kennedy?
I think from the outside, his energy came from his desire to do right, no matter what it cost, no matter who suffered, who gained, who lost. From the inside, it was his brother. He wanted to vindicate his brother. He really
Yeah.
hated Lyndon Baines Johnson.
So, what was he wanting to change most, Ed?
Well, of course, I knew him in a situation where he was with the poor. And if you would ask me that at the time, he wanted to change the plight of the farm workers and low income people. He was actually pretty conscious of the fact that blacks were highly stratified and there were blacks who were high up in the social system. but there are very few Hispanics and very few others. And he was almost like Jesus. He always wanted to reach to the lowest.
Now, he had a fierce intellect too, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a person who could cite the Bible, the Quran, the Constitution, and all these things in a running commentary that seemed like, my goodness. The only person who's really comparable to that is a person I met when I was working here in and near the White House, Henry Kissinger.
Ah.
Henry Kissinger is probably the most intelligent person I've ever met in my life.
So you put Bobby Kennedy up there with alongside Kissinger.
Kissinger, and another person who died very recently, my old boss, Collins, who went to the moon.
Oh.
And he was, as a matter of fact, he and Kennedy were very much alike.
How so?
Quiet, small, wiry.
So, Ed, why do you think the voice of Bobby Kennedy still resonates down the decades today?
Because he was the first hippie. He had this long flopping hair and his clothes falling half off of him. His shirt was never tucked in. His sleeves were rolled up. He had this band of people around him who were the first hippies, really. And they were his style. They imitated him. He didn't imitate them.
Unique.
He was a leader for those people who felt outside and outcast. So when the Vietnam War heated up, and remember, it was already started when he was around. His brother was involved in starting it, and he wanted it to end. And that's the thing that we carried as a torch. As a matter of fact, it led me to resign my commission in the military.
Ed, he kind of puts current politicians in the shade, doesn't he?
Oh, well, there aren't any current politicians, really.
No.
And to be quite honest with you, the current people who are in office are there, and I think Joe Biden's a bit of an exception, are there for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. God bless you, Ed. Thanks so much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you, and it's been hard for me to talk about it.
I know. It's hard for me every time I think about it, and I wasn't there. God bless you, mate, and thank you.
God bless you,
so
and thank
much.
you for your book and all you're doing for all of us.